thanks everybody for joining. I'm really excited to host this webinar about Cyber Essentials. It's definitely a new focus area for us here at IQ and IT, and given cybersecurity, given the recent cybersecurity concerns that were raised to us, it seems to be a topic that a lot of companies are trying to grasp at the moment. We're hoping that it continues to be on everybody's radar. So yeah, and a recent study by the Department for Digital, Culture, Media and Sport showed that companies see insufficient expertise to evaluate supplier cybersecurity risk as a threat to their cyber resiliency. So, and on top of that, there are limitations in the standards and frameworks surrounding this topic. However, was also general consensus, Cyber Essentials was commonly understood as a good way of demonstrating compliance with a minimum baseline. So yeah, that's why we're here. I'm ready to tackle this topic. So my name is Juri Weidenkeller. I'm the head of business development here at IQ and IT. And for those of you who don't know me, here's a bit of a fun fact. So I was born in Kazakhstan, and I have a 20-pound Amazon voucher for anybody who can send me a Borat joke that I haven't heard yet to team@iqandit.uk. Before we walk you through the agenda, let's give you a bit of an overview of IQ and IT. As you can see on the slide now, we're pretty awesome, winning all those awards and being ISO 27001 certified. We haven't added it to this slide, but we recently also became ISO 9001 certified. But in all seriousness, we, as a company, we make sure that our clients don't have to deal with IT-related problems and provide a technology roadmap that supports their business. Our backend processes aim at high security standards to ensure that personal data and your company's intellectual property is well protected. We are going to talk about cybercrime to kick things off and make sure that everybody's kind of on the same page for the rest of the presentation. And following that, you learn about Cyber Essentials, first on a real high level, and then I invite Kat Damcova, our managing director, for an interview about the process behind the certification. So yeah, I have to admit, it probably comes as a really huge surprise to everybody that the company who earns their money with cybersecurity wants to talk about cybersecurity. I get that, but please hear me out. There's a reason for that. So people work from anywhere nowadays. That's not a prediction anymore, but just today's reality. And every gadget that I personally own, for example, can be connected to the internet, receive communication, and so on. Is it useful? Some instances, highly doubted, but that's not a relevant question anymore. It's not relevant because thanks to all these gadgets and all these tools, user behavior has completely changed so far. To give you a quick example out of my personal life, over the last weekend, my wonderful wife got a bit of a cold. Thought it would be a great idea to have soup for dinner instead. So there were a couple of problems involved. So one is, I don't like soup, so I wanted pizza, and B, she wanted bread to go along. We ended ordering groceries from Co-op after waitrose just declined my order. Both happened through Deliveroo. I paid £2.50 to not stand up from the couch to go to Sainsbury's plus the premium grocery prices, right? Point is that clients consume information and buy differently than they used to. The teams don't want to come into the office anymore, neither do ours, for one reason or another. And hybrid work agreement could make or break a new employee agreement. I've read that the other day on LinkedIn. Some guy wants to come into the office, didn't sign the new contract. Some others just don't want to come into the office permanently because they hate the commute. So this is another thing to add to your daily processes and finding out how people like to work, where they want to work. So yeah, it's coming back to this topic of hybrid work. It can also just expand your catchment area for new people. It's harder and harder to find appropriate talent. So to wrap things up, people buy and consume differently. And there's lots of information out there. So just imagine the number of emails you receive every single day. Now triple that, because your normal spam filter, your normal spam filter should do a little bit of work, and then multiply that by 4.66 billion active internet users. There's up to roughly 306 billion emails every single day that are now sent out, not including spam text messages or the old LinkedIn bot trying to get you to book a demo for some tool you'll never need, right? But the fascinating bit about all those numbers is that roughly 85% of emails sent and partially received are spam. That translates into roughly 3,000 spam emails released into the World Wide Web wilderness every single millisecond. So one of those wonderful emails is shown now, right? So I received this maybe 2 weeks ago. It's clear this person wants me to answer to this mail because it will allow them to trick most spam filters to accept him as a trustworthy sender, and he could finally send me that malware link. So there's a good chance that the process is automated, something in the likes of like reply, wait for a few hours, send follow-up, wait for reply, send malware link to imitate human behavior. So this one's obviously spam, but what struck me is that it's flawless in the grammatical sense, right? I'm not a native English speaker. You hear my German accent, although I was born in Kazakhstan. Long story. Maybe we discuss this over a pint after this webinar, but it's well written. It doesn't make much sense, but it's well written. And the determining factors to disqualify this email as spam are based on personal experience and common sense. So nothing machines can't just yet identify to 100% as good as humans do. And these scams work in the same way as tourist scams in bigger cities like the Shell game and aim at emotions. They promise wealth and create a sense of urgency, or other times they promise secret information, for example, about salaries and raise curiosity. So long story short, they actually do work. Because 1 in 12.5 emails receives a reply or some form of other reaction, right? So Gartner is a research firm, and their bread and butter is to find and analyze industry trends that they then sell on, right? If you're running an enterprise software sales and want to target IT support companies or managed service providers like we are, you'd go to Gartner and tell them, hey, I have this really cool tool. Please tell me how my demographic is buying. And they will come back with an 80-page report, then your marketing can use it. So back in 2019, before the pandemic, which made the cybersecurity landscape even worse from a user perspective, they predicted that 70% of organizations will have suffered a disruption due to unrecoverable data loss in software as a service applications by 2022. And to be fair, that would mean anything from one deleted email that you look for a few minutes to a massive outage because of ransomware, right? And to put this into perspective, a successful ransomware attack against your company, by the way, is the IT equivalent of spilling a cup of coffee on your laptop on the morning of your quarterly business review presentation, and you don't have a backup. That's how significant a ransomware attack can impact your business. And the difference is that it's likely affecting more than just one person, right? And it's not solved by buying a new laptop, can therefore take a ridiculous amount of time for you and your company to get back to normal. Coming back to my pizza crave from earlier in this presentation, if your customers can't buy from you because your online shop or phone systems are down, or they will definitely find another company to buy from. They will not care why those systems are down, but there's another aspect to consider as well. So your team, right? If your employees can't do their jobs and have to make excuses to their customers, they will eventually become disengaged. If your employees can't work as effectively from home as they could in the office, your bottom line is taking a hit. I really hope that the slides so far have put in things into perspective. I know this is not the most interesting topic on this planet, but we don't cover this. The relevance of cyber essentials it doesn't come through properly. So I definitely will try to make the next part more interesting. Right. So the reason we're here together, good old cyber essentials. It's a simple but effective government-backed scheme that will help you to protect your organization, whatever its size, against a whole range of the most common cyber attacks. So cyber attacks come in many shapes and sizes, but the vast majority are very basic in nature, carried out by relatively unskilled individuals or people who just buy attacks on the internet, on the dark web. They are the digital equivalent of a thief trying your front door to see if it's unlocked in one way or another. So same study by the Department for Digital Culture, Media and Sport that I mentioned earlier identified a lack of incentive to address supply chain cybersecurity risks. To cite the government response, future government engagement will target those professionals and functions that may influence investment decisions within organizations such as investors, banks, and insurers, so that companies throughout the supply chain feel compelled to prioritize cybersecurity risk management. That being said, in the long run, there will be further financial aids and incentives on top of the benefits outlined on the slide, right? It's fair to say that these incentives become recurring, as cybersecurity is never a one-off project. You can't just buy cybersecurity and be over it. Get over yourself. It's a continuous process, involves a lot of learning, involves a lot of user training, and should be maintained to a smart level. So yeah, here you have it. We discussed the need for a governing cybersecurity scheme. We spoke about the idea behind Cyber Essentials and the benefits that already exist, plus the ones to follow. So I think it's time to cover the how now, isn't it, Kat? Ready? You want to introduce yourself really quick?
Yep. So I'm Kat. I'm the Managing Director of IQ IT. We've been around for quite a while, but Cyber Essentials is the latest addition to our services we can offer. So yeah, let's get on with it.
Yeah, I mean, it's great to know about the benefits of being Cyber Essentials certified. Let's find out how to get there. So how does the typical process look like?
So there are sort of two various ways how you can achieve certification. One is to go to the ASME website and pay and get the credentials to log into the portal and start the application. The other route is to speak to a certification body like ourselves, where we would create the portal login for you and give you access to it to fill out the information. The advantage of using us is that if you need assistance, you can come and talk to us rather than having a company assigned to you at random. We can offer consultancy and help you implement required measures and systems to be able to meet the Cyber Essentials requirements. You don't need to rush and can take your time making sure that you are compliant before submitting the answers. There are some changes, which I've been on a webinar with IASME and the National Cybersecurity on earlier today. So these changes are coming in January, and I am quite excited about them because they will be improving overall cybersecurity across businesses in UK. So very exciting.
Yeah, it's definitely pretty awesome to have someone who's just right at it. I mean, I saw you on the webinar earlier. It's what, like an hour ago? It's good to stay on top of things. I think one of the main questions around security is always like costing, how much it's going to cost me, what's the impact, blah, blah, blah. Well, what is the cost of Cyber Essentials?
So the cost is £300. It doesn't matter if you buy it via ASME or via us. The portal's the same, and the cost is set across. So that is what it costs.
Sweet, absolute bargain, I'd say.
Yep, and not only it makes you review your security, but also if you are successful, you can opt in for cyber insurance.
Yeah, that's true. I've been using that on LinkedIn a lot to promote this webinar as well. I mean, basically, the cyber business insurance covers up to 25 grand, £25,000, and it's an absolute treat. So yeah, quite nice. To switch the topic a little bit, I mean, we've always been security focused, right? It's our bread and butter. But where do you see Cyber Essentials in the services portfolio of a company, and why did IQ and IT become a Cyber Essentials certification body as well?
We see Cyber Essentials as the base layer of security for any business, and that doesn't just go to business. It includes schools or charities and the government itself. The need for sort of businesses or any organization owners is to take the responsibility for securing their digital assets. It's been made a lot more pressing over the last 20 months because of the growing sort of interest of cyber criminals. There is no business too small or one which has no valuable data. Each time a person or business gets successfully exploited, it leads to more funding for the hackers' research and development. We have a responsibility to our client and to wider community to protect and minimize these attacks. Helping companies to achieve cyber essentials is one of the ways to lower the success rate and help keep everyone safer. It's so much easier if we reduce the amount of funding cyber criminals have and increase the funding to sort of our own cyber protection and our own IT infrastructure.
Nice, yeah, 100% agree. It's an interesting point that you made about the funding cycle. So yeah, every attack funds the next 10 attacks. It's become a major industry. So yeah, I've been only around for a few months, right? I used to work for one of our current vendors, which we'll come back to later. But Cyber Essentials has been in the making for way before I started. So when did you decide to become or make IQ and IT a certification body?
So it was back in October 2020. So as part of our ISO 27001, we review of what our security improvements are for the following year, and one of the parts was to become a certification body. So I have previously been following the standard for several years and exploring how we can sort of become part of it. We've been helping several of our clients through the certification process, and I think it just makes sense for us to be able to comply with the standard, but also be able to sort of do the assessment ourselves. As security is one of our focus areas, we help our clients adhere to good standard security.
Yeah, perfect. I mean, it does sound like a ton of work. Well, what are our requirements? What did we go through to achieve Cyber Essentials certification body status?
So there is two parts of it. One is the company side, and one is the sort of individual person who goes and assesses stuff. So the company needs to have 27001, which is the IT security standard, which we have had for many years. The next requirement is 9001 ISO. So that's something we've not had, but again, it was something I wanted to achieve anyway, because it's very good for making sure our overall processes are in place. And it also benefits our clients. And obviously, we as a company need to have a person who has passed the assessor exam. So yeah, that's the sort of requirements for Cyber Essentials certification body.
Great. Yeah, nice one. Maybe to explain, ISO 27001 is cybersecurity and 9001 is quality management. Should probably drop this a bit earlier. I completely forgot to mention it because these are terms and kind of abbreviations that we use day in, day out, but people who are not too familiar with well, that aspect of the industry, it just doesn't make much sense. It's just a bunch of numbers. So yeah, there we go.
So just out of interest, do you have any idea how many questions there are on the Cyber Essentials?
Yeah, I suddenly became the numbers guy, didn't I? It's a great question. It always depends on the individual infrastructure. It makes perfect sense, and the company, of course, and the different processes involved, blah, blah, blah. But a good figure that I found online is about 70 questions. And they relate to 5 Cyber Essential security controls. Just predicting your next question a little bit here. The controls are secure configuration, firewalls, user access controls, security update management. My all-time favorite, my absolute favorite, malware protection. So that being said, kind of have a follow-up question for you. How long does it normally take to pass Cyber Essentials self-assessment?
So this vary greatly depending on security systems in place and obviously the size of the organization. it seems that large companies are actually requiring a lot of resources from IASME themselves to help them understand and pass this process. So the sort of base of it is you need to complete a form based on your environment. So the computers, servers, network, firewalls, that all needs to be assessed and part of the application. Once complete, the assessor would check that all information is compliant and issue a certificate. If the answers need clarifying or something is not compliant, you would have 2 days to resubmit your assessment. So technically you could get Cyber Essentials as fast as, on the same day, if everything you filled in the form is correct and answering the questions fully. And obviously having an assessor who reviews it the same day and issues a certificate if everything is to the standard.
Yeah, so it's a lot like, if it's that your well, not your trade, basically, you might need some help, and this is exactly where we come in, right? So can have a look through before you submit your answers, and we be of help when you want to go through the Cyber Essentials process as a company.
Yep, exactly. As mentioned, it's a very good way to assess your security standard and close those gaps you may discover. We can propose solutions to improve your security to meet or exceed the standard. As the standard itself is constantly evolving, you may not be aware of the changes and what's where, and we can help you take that stress out of it. As mentioned earlier, I have just been on an IASME webinar, which is for assessors, and discovering sort of the changes which are coming in January next year and the following year to improve and build on the standard.
Nice, brilliant. So definitely thanks for clarifying. It's good to have you so close to IASME, to work with clients, to help our partners to succeed with the certification process. I would also think that not every company gets it right on the first try, right? So what happens if a company fails?
Well, it does happen quite a lot. In one of the assigned assessment I have done last week, I had no choice but to fail the organization. It was a school with nearly 150 devices on the network, and some of them were unfortunately too old to receive updates, and they also had a shared account. So basically having an account where multiple people were using to log into a device. The reason they decided to do the standard was to improve their security. So this is really good. As part of Cyber Essentials, they get detailed reports where their weaknesses are, and I have also left many notes for them to understand how they can improve their security. So as part of the standard and part of the sort of being Cyber Essentials assessor, it's always to try and help the companies or organizations to improve their security and build up on it so they can understand and continue to improve on there.
Yeah, I guess you don't know what you don't know, right? If nobody tells you how to do certain things, you don't have the in-house expertise. It's really, really hard to, deal with the scenario. So yeah, I hope they use that to report and make sure that they pass the next one. My following question is a little bit more personal. So why did you want to become an assessor?
Cybersecurity together with technology is still my passion alongside running IQ and IT. As we continue to develop, we may look at other members taking the exam and extending to other areas like IASME Government Audited or Cyber Essential Plus. But in a nutshell, I very much want to continue developing my own skills and staying in touch with technology and obviously assisting our clients and the wider community in improving security because it is key to every single person. And even if it's someone we might not get along with or a competitor, it's not beneficial to anyone if they get hacked, because it unfortunately damages all of us, because, as mentioned earlier, there is more funding to those cyber criminals as a result of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's kind of a vicious circle, right? A race to the bottom, if you like. Talking about other members of your team, I'd be up for it, that's for sure. But just a quick one before I promise volunteering for the next exam. How's it going so far? How do you like being an assessor?
Well, it's a bit like being a teacher. I was speaking to IASB yesterday about Cyber Essentials and about some of the applicants that have been assessing from the general pool of applications. So far, each applicant has not correctly filled in the details about the devices they use. So the question A 2.6, which is, please list the quantities of laptops, computers, and virtual desktops within the scope of this assessment. You must include model and operating system version for all devices. For Windows 10 devices, the edition and the feature version are also required. I need to understand what is the environment to be able to assess if it is still supported on the operating system level, hardware level. Is it still getting drivers and firmware updates? It's crucial to read the questions. Another questions where many people fail to answer correctly is a question 2.6.1. Please list quantities of servers, virtual servers, and virtual server hosts, hypervisors. You must include model and operating system. The company I'm assessing right now has answered, we have some RDS servers. Well, okay.
Some is a really good number, right?
Yeah.
More than one, less than 20. Yeah.
Tells me absolutely everything. So what I had to do is request more information. As there was no way for me to understand or know or be able to make any decisions about if it is compliant or not. This is an application filled by someone who's doing it because they need it as part of being able to tender for a project. Is not necessarily the best approach, as they'll have to talk to their IT company to get accurate details. And if those details aren't correct, they need to put the right structure and processes in place to make sure that they are following and complying with the standard before they resubmit.
Kind of makes sense, right? Can't really assess something that you can't fully grasp yourself. It's a little bit tricky. It's a bit finding out about your electricity consumption without having a counter at home, basically. There are a couple more aspects to ISV and Cyber Essentials. So I've come across the terms ISV Governance and Cyber Essentials Plus. So what are those two?
So ISV Governance has many aspects of ISO 27001, GDPR, NHS data security, and other standards. It's a very good standard, especially if a company is looking to achieve ISO 27001, but can't really justify the cost of it. It is aimed at smaller businesses who want to demonstrate good cybersecurity standard and may also need it to comply with certain type of security compliance. There's the self-certify, and just like the Cyber Essentials and Cyber Essential Plus, the IASME audited version means that a third party like ourselves would visit your business to confirm that your self-certification is indeed correct. And we would physically check things like your assets, policies, and other parts based on what's in the initial assessment. With Cyber Essentials Plus, it means your Cyber Essentials certification is audited. So the the form which you complete online. I would then go look at it. I would then ask you to provide me this or that. I would go and check that those are indeed in place. And in addition to that, there is a vulnerability scan, which is run to discover any weaknesses on the network.
Nice, yeah. Cool. Thanks for clarifying.
So you've sort of worked with one of our suppliers before you've kindly joined our team.
Depends on who you ask, but yeah.
What can you tell our audience about what the supply chain is doing about security?
Yeah, I hope you're ready for quite a lengthy one. So yeah, I work for a company that provides remote monitoring and management tools for managed service providers, right? So that tool allows companies like us to deliver the services that we do while making sure that everything is sound and safe. Problem is, this tool can also be exploited and used to distribute malware. So from a cyber criminal perspective, that would be the absolute jackpot, because they only need to hack one player, one big player to be fair, but still one player to infect thousands, if not 10,000s of companies in one attack in one go. And this happened to a couple of suppliers, to a couple of, well, vendors in the past. The most recent one was Kaseya. Luckily, we don't use them. The 2 years before that was ConnectWise. Again, don't use them. But what happens in this instance is that these tools are, exploited to distribute ransomware to end user companies. And it's fair to say that the impact of a breach like this is also the reason why our vendors try their very best to stop this from happening. In my previous company, the chief information security officer runs a huge team that they call information security department, and they carry out penetration tests. So that means on one side you have the developers that further build the tool and make sure all its functionality is as great as the users want it to be. On the other hand, you have a similar sized tool with similar skill set that tries to destroy it. They try to penetrate whatever has been built before and come in from different angles and basically want to exploit the tool. It's called ethical hacking. Every company in that space is doing that. The difference is the difference in effort is significant, and we always chose, or IQ and IT always chose vendors who spend significantly more money on their own supply chain that the industry average simply is. The next step is also have external ethical hackers come in. So external auditors, once again, there's ISO 27001, right? There are a lot of different versions for penetration testing, also physical penetration testing for data centers where cloud-based systems are hosted. And again, they come in, try to break the systems and see if it crumbles. The next step is to look into suppliers. So if it's not run in their own data center and it's hosted by Microsoft Azure or an Amazon Web Services, they in their supplier contracts, they demand the right to audit. So in our instance, data goes out to AWS and says, hey, we need to come in and test, right? And they have very high level, very high standards that need to be met before they can continue working with AWS. So yeah, making sure that the supply chain basically holds its ground. The last thing, and I've been through countless trainings at this company and at ours as well. So I think is employees are the biggest threat to cybersecurity, right? People clicking on links, doing dumb stuff within their documents, doing, I don't know, dodgy streaming on their laptops, work laptops, and kind of exposing their their intranets to the World Wide Web and God knows what. And one thing to do to prevent this from happening is by training your employees. And I feel, like I said, I've been through countless trainings where we were explained how a phishing email looks like, what links to follow, what not links to follow, just in case the spam filter doesn't work properly. And at IQ and IT, one of the examples that I like to point out is configuration of Microsoft 365. So I personally, for example, can't change my own email signature because it would require a certain security level that I just don't have, and also shouldn't have, because it would allow me to do other things. And if my password was compromised, or my 2FA or whatever would be disabled, and people had access to the part of the admin panel, they could do significant damage to us as a company, but also to our clients. So long story short, I have to raise a ticket for when my email signature changed, but for the good of security. Hope that helps.
Not that we don't trust you, but
Yeah.
it's the approach of zero trust, which is unfortunately the way everyone needs to start going towards, because you just don't know where it could come from. Yeah. And it could be a vulnerability which hasn't been fixed yet, or anything else which might be in an app you might have downloaded, and it just might be compromised. It could be compromised at the supply chain level. Yeah. You know, we've seen it with SolarWinds, where the target was the US government with a Orion product, and that is a vendor we have dropped about nearly a year before that incident, because we have discovered that their security practice is not up to our standard. So it's not that we check our vendors when we start working with them. We continue checking and understand how they work to make sure that our clients are secure. And that is the top priority for us, to make sure that we protect our clients and ourselves, because if we get compromised, then that's very, very dangerous to our clients. So we realize the responsibility, and we make sure that we take the most precaution we can.
I mean, yeah, to be fair, the industry is only going to become more complex, right? Like we said initially, everybody has like 3-4 devices on them that connect to the internet, and everybody wants access to all information through all devices. So there are multiple ways. There are so many ways into a private network or into a device, and covering all of them is already a hard task, but staying on top of industry news is just another one.